The year is 50,000, and in a galaxy is worse than ever. So, I have an idea for a video today, and it's just kind of like a thought experiment, something I was kind of just playing with. And then, to be honest, ChatGPT came out with that new deep dive feature, and I was like, you know what? I've been playing an idea playing in the back of my head for quite some time. Let's see what chat says about this subject. And so kind of what I wanted to do is to do this little deep dive and take the story of the universe in 30,000, compare it to the universe of the 41st millennium, and where we progress in each faction into the 50th millennium. So basically what we're going to cover today is who rises, who falls, and who eats everyone else. So we're not going to cover every faction on this today, but if this is an interesting idea and you'd like me to make more detailed videos on this for each faction, it's definitely something I'd like to do. It'd be fun. And kind of seeing where each faction goes into the 50th K. Most of these actually go with it, like basically good versus bad for each faction. So let's get into this. So for the Imperium of Man, right? Either are going to be on the brink of collapse or in a crusade rebirth, right? And it kind of lies with the Emperor. If the Emperor dies completely, there's no more warp navigation, so we're cut off from everything, right? If he awakens, Guilliman's probably going to start his second Great Crusade and reshape everything, all right? But some downfalls that might happen are just pure bureaucracy, heresy, and civil war within, still plaguing the Imperium like it is already in the 41st millennium. All right, chaos and their god traders and all that good naughty boy stuff. All right, the Great Rift fuels constant warp incursions, right? More demons, more Primarchs return, possibility of a fifth chaos god, or just, I'm thinking probably Malice or something just wildly and completely new. And the one that would be interesting, I think, would be like if they formed a fully fledged counter Imperium, like they came together and just focused their goal on one thing instead of each individual Chaos God faction. All right, Tyranids are going to be a wild one, I think. If they continue to progress and continue to protrude and bigger Tyranids keep coming through the hive, right, as the main body keeps getting closer and closer to Terra, right? Hive fleets are far more likely than just scouts. We already know more are coming, so galaxy-wide consumption is gonna happen, right? And taking their already adapted other Xenos into their DNA pool is just gonna make them crazy. And then I can only imagine them fighting the Chaos armies and evolving with that DNA, and then also being into like a warp resistance even further, and it's gonna get crazy. For the Necrons, it's probably going to be more of the larger dynasties actually start waking up as they wake up every century. So the Silent King probably unifying everyone and bringing in a second war in heaven. And what's probable is they would continue to dominate the galaxy of Imperium and Chaos. They're still limited by warp hostile tech. But again, that depends on how other factions, like we talked about before, see how that goes for them. They lose that capability, the Necrons could do some damage to the universe. Chaos factions, let's talk about the Death Guard, right? Nurgle thrives on decay, spreading throughout the real space, right? So as these armies are fighting, Nurgle is just gonna be like, thanks for the free candy, right? All right, so plague worlds multiplying, many weaponizing galaxies, psychic diseases and stuff like that, right? And threatens to humanity from survival, just as they're already doing now, and it's just going to be at a higher rate. An interesting one would be probably the Thousand Suns. All right, if they have their psychic awakening, it can boost their powers, can manipulate entire sectors through their schemes of playing behind the scenes and stuff like that. They could distort time itself and turn their own psychers and basically into demigods, right? But because of chaos infighting and warp instability, they're gonna limit their self on control. And one of my favorites probably that came out of this little thought experiment is the Orks, right? The population exploding across the galaxy with a mega Waaagh incoming, right? Gazul legacy might lead to Gork and Mork avatars. Right? Their tech is still crude, but just as deadly as it always has been. They probably actually, other than forming together, if they could stay coordinated and make a massive mega Waaagh and become even more powerful, or the opposite direction is that they're still uncoordinated and they basically remain the exact same they have been through the 30th and the 40th K. And one that I actually find really interesting, I know they get tons and tons of hate, so I can already hear it in the comments. The Tau suck. Is the Tau Empire. Depending on how Tau run things, it could really be yin or yang for them. It really, really could be. They're a small, tight-knit group with high potential. All right, with their advanced technologies and stuff like that. But they could become a more technocratic superpower if they survive. Because of their numbers, right? They are open to diplomacy and tech integration. So that could be, they could bring other factions, and they already do, bringing other factions into their fold and taking over. All right, and what's most likely will be the Tau's downfall in the 50th K is that they still remain naive about chaos and the warp, and it will end them if they do that. The Inquisition and the Assassins, right? That's going to be a tricky one because that kind of falls under the Imperium of Man a little bit, right? But they become total totalitarians, right? And create firewalls holding the Imperium together, but holding them back at the same time, right? Another thing that will probably happen, as we've seen in storylines and books and stuff like that, is rogue Inquisitioners becoming more and more common. And then, which will be interesting because I could see it evolving and merging, is that the assassin templates become key tools of survival. And then, of course, what will probably be the Inquisition's complete and utter downfall in the 50th K is secrecy becomes their greatest threat. They're already hard charged now with everybody's heresy, so imagine adding another 10,000 years to that. All right, now let's talk about the Space Marines in general, right? Just all of them combined together, all your good guy Space Marines, right? They're probably going to be dominated by Primaris Marines now, right? Everybody's huge, everybody's bigger, everybody's 10 and 12 feet tall. The chapters have probably become more private armies, and they have probably become larger than their stapled 1,000 troops. Another one would probably be a post-evolution to post-Primaris, right? Or hybrid unit, someone trapped in between, or even maybe way back, they like de-evolved. It would be the other direction, right? When the Emperor was first making Marines and was like these like super crazy berserker warriors. And I probably used their title in there, so I apologize on not knowing my 30K knowledge that well. As we've been doing on every single one of these subjects is talking about a super downfall. And that will be that even more factions break off and even more of the factions fall off into chaos. Now that is an interesting one. So there's certain factions that are like teeter that line of chaos, or like you're like, whoa bro, you're like super the bad guy right now. And it would be interesting to see certain Space Marine chapters in 50th K that were always stapled as like the good guy, obviously not the Ultramarines or the Grey Knights or anything like that, but having like not Iron Warriors is not a good example. Space Wolves, Blood Angels falling to chaos. That would be interesting. Especially the Blood Angels. Oh my god. Imagine if the Black Templars fell to chaos. That would probably create a whole new god right there. That would be a whole new chaos god right there. That'd be a wild one right there. Oh yeah. Adeptus Mechanicus, right? The good old Mars boys. What would they be doing in the 50th K universe, right? So this is definitely a big yin yang one right here, right? So they could rediscover some AI or some STCs that could create a second golden age, right? Or they could trigger another rebellion. And with the proximity of Terra and Mars and how close they work together, what will probably happen, I could definitely see, right? These are all different like little variables of what could happen, is the heretics of Mars start a civil war. That would be interesting to see, right? Like just to see them two just like bring each other to crippling demise. Now, here's the really crazy one that I really enjoyed off of this thought experiment, was that if they would stop worshiping toasters and actually evolved and actually let technology grow, they could probably rival the Necrons in 10,000 years. I think so. I really think so. This one wasn't in my original list, but as a Grey Knight player, it didn't pop up in the original list, but as a Grey Knight player, I had to be like, yo, what happened to my Grey Knights? Right? So, and of course, as I thought they would do, because we're the bestest boys in silver, is that they're still the purest demon hunters alive, right? At this point, though, in the 50K universe, is that they're a little overworked, highly outnumbered, but because of the warp ravaging the galaxy, they're extremely vital now. And another great thought experiment that I had with this is, what if the Emperor of Mankind came back, rebirth, reborn, just started to heal again, however you want to play with that thought experiment, is that I could see the Grey Knights, because they're technically from his gene seed, is using them as his personal bodyguard. And their biggest risk, going super sad boy for my big boys, is that the risk of the universe, of other things happening, is that they become irrelevant, or they actually become corrupted themselves. That would be game over for the Grey Knights. All right, by the 50th K, the galaxy has probably, honestly, actually hit its endgame. But what I mean by that, it's probably either going to be some kind of rebirth, some kind of total extinction, or some external war, something else new coming in, some new faction that we don't even know about yet. What faction do you think survives into the 50th K? Which ones do you think don't make it at all, right? And who is going to be the big bad and who's going to be the good guy in the 50th K universe? Let me know down in the comments down below. Like, comment, and subscribe for more Grimdark future theories. If you like this series, let me know down in the comments. Also, I would love to expand on this thought experiment. And as always, every stroke of the brush and swing of the blade adds character to your miniature. YouTube thinks you'll like this video right here. And if you'd like to subscribe, click this button right here. And if you'd like to see the behind the scenes and works in progress and things that I'm doing behind the scenes, you follow me on Instagram right here. And I'll see you in the next one.